Today on Locked On Canadiens, is this team messing with us?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 1186, which is brought to you by Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search, just match with Indeed. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. My name is Laura Saab, also known as The Active Stick, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, who not only had to do the show entirely by himself last week, but has had to carry the last couple of shows because I am under the weather and my voice is shot. Ian, that was a game that I don't even know if, we talked about it yesterday. If you had bet money on that, how would you have made out?
Pretty well. The numbers were not good headed into this one, and reasonably so. Montreal was not at all favored in this one. I saw like a lot of those the pregame sort of percentage to win sort of graphics that we get on social media. I think I saw one where the Canadiens had a 22% chance of winning, and I thought that seems kind of high. And then they came out and they first period was pretty quiet back and forth. They scored towards the end of the second period, and from that point on, the game belonged to the Montreal Canadiens, which is not something we've been able to say much since, I don't know, the Cup final. So it was a really, really great night to be a Montreal Canadiens fan.
I do agree. So today's show, we're going to talk a little bit first at the beginning, like the highlights of the game. We're going to talk about how the Montreal Canadiens were able to contain the superstars on the Edmonton Oilers. And then in our final segment, we're just going to try to figure out like whether this team is messing with us or not. Why do they look so terrible some nights and so amazing other nights? That's all coming up in this episode. But first, let's start with the basics of that Edmonton game. Samuel Montalvo seems to be back. I think, let's just get that one out of the way. Last week, this game, I'm not worried about him anymore. I got to say, I was maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm not worried about him anymore. How about you?
The one thing I'm worried about with him is his workload, because he's about to play the rest of the games this season. I am very worried about. I had to do this show for a week by myself. He's going to have to play like 60 more games to end the year. I just think, and people who listen to Monday's episode know, I kind of pointed out that last week Sam Montembeault put together a pretty sick week, and not a lot of people were talking about it. He was a 947 last week. He appeared in all 3 games. He earned the win in the Buffalo game in the funniest way possible. So, he was putting together solid effort after solid effort. And for him to get rewarded with a shutout against the Edmonton Oilers is just, another feather in his cap, right? He was already playing well. The numbers back that up over the last little while. But to get that blank slate, the goalies love that. And I think the team loves that, because I think across the board, they earned that defensively. Up and down the lineup, just about everybody chipped in some way, shape, or form. Not necessarily offensively, but, I look at a guy like Arbor Xhekaj. I thought he had a tremendous game. He laid out Hyman at center ice, which was cool. But then also he was just really strong defensively and didn't make a lot of dumb mistakes. That was kind of true up and down the lineup. So just from top to bottom, a really enjoyable game, which we don't get a lot of. So I'm basking in this warmth. I'm kind of glad we have 4 days until the next game, because we get to sort of just hang out in this for a while.
Yeah, it would have been great if it was like a back-to-back and they lost like 9-2 the next day.
Yeah, or they'd be getting bag skated for 4 days. Like, it's good for the team morale that they get to go into this break, go into practice, have fun this week, come back Saturday, and maybe shock the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, on any given night, any team in this league can win. Marty said it at the beginning of the season. Why not us? So I'm kind of drinking the Kool-Aid again, so to speak, with this team.
We'll do the why not us later in this week. We're going to be happy for now.
Yeah,
and sure. Also for our regular listeners, as you know, we have this segment called Rumor Roundup. There's not a lot of games this week. You can bet that there will be some Rumor Roundup in the future. We maybe do a little bit of expanded trivia. I'm workshopping an idea, which you'll probably see like sometime later this week. All right, real quick. I did want to talk about you talked about Arbor Xhekaj, like not making dumb mistakes. What were the giveaways on this
Oh,
team.
great. So I did something a little different with this one. I took the NHL stats, which is what I've been doing, just looking at what they've provided, and I've also counted my own for at
Okay.
least for the Canadians because the way that they call turnovers is entirely subjective. It's depending on who's calling them. I had 15 turnovers for the Canadians. The NHL only had 9. So I don't know what's happening there. I don't know that they value them the same way that maybe the fan does watching the game. But 14-9, Edmonton had more. So if we're going just off of the NHL's numbers, which the last few games they've been on the road, which means the home team's official scorers were handling all of that. The Canadians have been cleaning it up. They're playing a lot more responsibly with the puck. You're seeing guys like Slavkovsky, who I think he got benched last game for making some bad plays with the puck. That benching enforces the idea that they have to take care of the puck, and they're doing it, and they're having success because of it. You could not afford to give the Edmonton Oilers any more pucks than they already had. They have two players in the game right now on their team. You can't do it, and they didn't. We'll get to it in the second segment, but Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl were blanked in pretty dramatic fashion for what it's worth. They did not early on. They had some looks, but I think generally speaking, Montreal took care of business in just about every facet of the game. Power play notwithstanding, but we're gonna let that go for now because having a
Three
good
goal
night.
shutout. 3 goal shutout.
Right, right.
We're not going to complain to not looking a gift horse in the mouth, whatever that
Yeah.
means. And usually before we start recording, Ian and I will kind of, after a game, single out players we want to talk about in a good way or a bad way. I feel like this game there were multiple people, and for me, like what I'm understanding is basically that a lot of players just didn't do the things that we're constantly complaining about on this show.
Yeah.
So I think there was that, and I feel like people can't be trading Matheson after tonight.
Tonight, Saturday's game, he's been excellent. He's been excellent. And we are big Matheson defenders on this show because I find anyway that we're somewhat obligated to be because the way that this fan base turns on this guy at the at breakneck speed is kind of silly because he can be great and he often is great for this hockey team and he was great. At the top of my notebook when I'm getting ready I write down the lines and I'm getting ready to start the game. I usually write down something I kind of want to know before the end of the game, and I wanted to know if Slavkovsky would rebound from getting benched, and he absolutely did. I forget what goal it was, the Gallagher goal, the ultimate game-winning goal, the first one of the game. Slavkovsky created that by winning a bunch of battles up and down the ice in different places. So that's if he's being successful, that's what he's doing. And as soon as that goal went in, I saw Slav's face, and you could just see like he was so happy to just be part of what was going on. I really don't think he cares too much about scoring goals. I think he'd much rather set goals up and win games if you had to pick between the two of them. So a big game from Slav.
I think that's really interesting too, is because like Slav was selected for big moment plays, right? Like big moments. He dominated in the Olympics, right? He caught everyone's attention at that point. But it's interesting that he himself wants to be more of a depth player. Sorry, not more of a depth player, a deeper, like have more depth to his game. Not a depth player. No, no. Just, have more depth to his game. And I think it's really interesting, like, because you're watching the way his mind works and the way his hockey mind works evolve, right? You're literally watching his growth. And I think it's so rare to have that. You have to pick really high and have somebody that's good enough to get into the NHL right off the bat to kind of watch that evolution, because a lot of times that growth is happening. And let's be honest, leagues other people are watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like, this has been like, it's been a treat to watch him. And I think we can't underscore that, because we get so lost in like, someone said he was the next Yager and he's not going to live up to that. And we're all going to be disappointed. And we get so lost in that. And if we just stop and take game by game, moment by moment, and watch Slavkovsky, just look at the difference between the day he first played his first NHL game and today. And he's a grown up now. And I think that's really, really interesting. I did really quickly want to say, how scared were you when Gouli appeared to be dead in that first period?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get much information other than he went down the tunnel. Usually the only information you'll get after that is he's back or he's not playing the rest of the night.
Yeah.
He came out for the second period, and the crew on Amazon, the Amazon broadcast has been phenomenal, by the way. Really, really great, enjoyable stuff as a fan. But they didn't even mention it until he was in the middle of blocking a shot. And I like squinted. I was like, that's Caden Gooley. I thought he died. Wait, what happened? So yeah, that was pretty interesting. But all in all, to put a ball in this game, I will say that this is, I don't know if this was a 60-minute effort, but it's as close as we have gotten in a long time to a 60-minute effort. I'm planting my flag in the ground. This was their best game of the year.
Yeah.
So this is the standard now, as far as I'm concerned. This is the game that they need to play more often than not.
Yeah, and I really hope that they don't come out and disappoint us. All right. There were a lot of things that were right in that game, including containing two massive superstars. So we're going to get into that in our next segment, and then at the end of the last segment of the show, we do want to talk about the inconsistency of this team and which team is really the Montreal Canadiens. That's all coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. But first, this episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. What I like about Indeed is that it takes all the busy work out of trying to hire, and you can focus all of your energy on finding the right match. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, so we are surprised. I think it's absolutely fair to say that we are completely surprised by the efforts the Montreal Canadiens made tonight, and the results they got. And I think one of the biggest things was on yesterday's show when we were trying to preview the week, we talked about how you can't contain players like Leon Draisaitl and obviously Connor McDavid. And the Montreal Canadiens did just that.
Yeah, we kind of said that what happens with these star players is you can hold them at bay for a while, hope that your offense can chip away a little bit, and then hope that the dam doesn't break. They never had a dam to break. It just didn't. It wasn't something that the Oilers were particularly great at. I thought Montreal played those two players particularly tough. There were a few moments early on where McDavid was kind of running around as he is one to do, and same with Draisaitl, but they weren't getting much of danger. They were putting a lot of pucks onto sticks of their teammates. But one of the things we did talk about on last episode was the lack of depth scoring for the Edmonton Oilers. So yeah, McDavid can put the puck on somebody's stick, but more often than not, it's not going in the net. He was frustrated early, Connor McDavid. He was smashing his stick into the boards. His body language was terrible. I think from that point, we should have kind of known that maybe something was going to happen this game that would have been nice. But I thought his body language was terrible all game. And it was weird. It was the first period against the Montreal Canadiens. You should be able to be fine and beat this team, even if you miss a few chances here or there. Montreal gives teams a lot of chances to score. It was very weird to see them get, that bent out of shape that early and just kind of never recover from it.
And I think,
it doesn't happen often.
I think the Canadiens did a lot that what I did appreciate about this game was that the Habs, however they play in that first period, whether it's good, whether it's bad, their second periods usually suck.
Yep.
That's not what happened this time around. They didn't let the game unravel. And I think that's one of the big keys. Obviously, you've got Connor McDavid and Draisaitl having a bad night. And I think it's really funny because whenever you see Connor McDavid do that, eventually it ends up with a broken stick and somebody sulking, usually him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what ended up happening was that he just, I guess, kind of let it ruin his night.
Yeah. Yeah, like I have done often with this hockey team. I've let them ruin my night. So me and Connor McDavid, the same guy. The Montreal Canadiens have ruined both of our nights from time to time. There were some really interesting numbers to come out of this one. I know you've desperately missed my resilience in bringing up numbers. So, 60% possession at 5-on-5. So Corsi, 64% of the scoring chances, 75% of the high danger chances, 12-4 for the Montreal Canadiens at 5-on-5. That's nuts. That
Those are numbers you don't see in any game, not just the Montreal
no,
Canadiens games, right?
no. And well, you might see those. It's just usually 12 for the other team and 4 for our guys. The fact that the Canadiens took a team with McDavid and Draisaitl and they got 4 high danger chances at 5-on-5 all night. It's massive. That's so impressive. And Montembeault makes 30 saves in the shutout, but very clearly not many of them were of high quality. So, Montembeault, most of the time, if he sees the puck, he's going to stop it. They did a really good job of making it easy for him to make saves. Cole Caulfield kind of turned this game around in a way in the third period. He completely bodied Leon Draisaitl off the puck. Draisaitl's like twice the size of him.
That's really funny.
I still see it in my head of like, how did he do that? Like I'm sort of seeing that a lot with Lane Hudson, where he just goes in and wins battles against guys he has no right being in the fight with. Caulfield just did that against Draisaitl, and it ended up with him stealing the puck, him and Evans passing the puck back and forth way too many times. If they passed it one more time, I probably would have thrown up. And then Gooley kind of stepping in and just being like, I'll handle this. It's fine. And then later on, I think on the next shift, Draisaitl's going down the ice and Caulfield knocks him over. Like that's something that shouldn't happen. I don't know what's gotten into Caulfield lately, but he's playing angry. It's like someone already told him he's not going to make Team USA at the Four Nations, and he's just playing so mad about it.
I think we've seen Cole Caulfield kind of do this before, like play bigger than he is. I just feel like it's not been as enjoyable. Like you don't necessarily see it, right? But he does outwork his opponent a lot of the time. But it's interesting that he didn't wriggle out or wriggle away. He wasn't like doing the speed and skill thing. He was literally just out muscling.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. And I wonder too if they've been doing a little bit of work on that front. One, like playing better in front of Montembeault, and just like, the goaltending on this team was a big problem. And I wonder if there's like been work, done, maybe even just video work. And then just sort of like the Canadiens are hearing everyone calling them soft and responding differently. Because I don't think that they're inherently a soft team. I think it's very tempting with this team's history to be like, oh, it's all a bunch of small, soft people. No, I don't think that's true. And I don't think that that's necessarily the way that they play. I think that that's the way that they've played. But I don't necessarily think that it's the way that they play. And I think, you see a little bit of Marty in that, like scoring up with guys way bigger than he is. Like Brendan Gallagher's like that. Speaking of Brendan Gallagher, also got a goal.
Yeah, this dude can't stop scoring, man. The Gallagher Renaissance, I smile every time I think about it, because it's just he should not be doing this. He can't keep getting away with this, and yet he still does. It's funny. He's kind of turned into like, and I know that the player I'm about to mention is a far more skilled hockey player than Brendan Gallagher, but stay with me for the analogy. Like late stage Joe Pavelski, where he's just standing in front of the net tipping pucks in. So many of his goals have come on deflections, just standing in the slot. Like that's what Joe Pavelski did for most of his career, but especially towards the end when the rest of the soft skills weren't really there. That's Gallagher's never really had the soft skills because the guy they celebrated on Saturday night broke his hand twice. So that's something that I think he's doing. He's excelling at that. The one stat I did want to get out before we move on to our next segment, Yuri Slafkovsky, according to Money Puck, 95.74% of the expected goals while he was on the ice. He was tops in the game. I know that's more so like a line stat, right? You're looking at how a line plays on any given shift. But for Yuri Slafkovsky to go from the doghouse to the penthouse overnight is pretty great. So another feather in his cap for that one. A great game from him. Hopefully they can maintain some of this momentum heading into Saturday's game. I don't know how you keep that intensity up at practice, but they're going to have to figure out a way to do it.
And one thing I wanted to mention too is that I saw more videos of Patrick Laine skating today. Very, very encouraging. I don't know. He looks good.
Yeah, and as Arvin Basu pointed out on the Basu and Godin notebook, no training staff out with him. No, like, medical people watching. It was just him and Adam Nicholas, which is strange. It seems like maybe, I don't want to say he's ahead of schedule, but it seems like maybe he'll hit the earlier window. Remember, they said 2 to 3 months essentially. What 2 months would be the beginning of December. We're
Yeah,
we're right around the corner. If
maybe
this
it's a
team
Christmas gift.
this team is in stride and they get Patty Laine back, the vibes change overnight. So, fingers crossed that we can get that sort of, crossover of the team playing well and getting an elite player back.
Speaking of said vibes, are the vibes of this team good, bad? I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. Why are they so inconsistent? Are they actually legitimately messing with us? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. This episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, so I don't understand this team. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. This season has looked at times so miserable, but then once in a while they come out with a game like this. Usually it's against a team that's much worse than the Edmonton Oilers. So I did think that it was very significant that in this game they didn't do all of the things that we complain about all the time. Or they were better at it, right? And I do think that there is some significance to you tracking the daily turnovers and the numbers looking better every game. And they were at one point, they were egregiously bad. They were so bad that I literally did not believe the number when you said it.
Yeah, there was 3 games in a row. I think it was the Calgary, Washington, Pittsburgh 3 where they were over 20 a game. You're just not winning games like that. Yeah, the fact that they have cleaned it up to this degree this quickly is just tremendous buy-in from the players. But I think, and I sent out a post about it on Blue Sky to sort of, jab at people who were firing Marty St. Louis, but this was a coaching effort, was it not? Did he not do an excellent job getting these guys ready to play against the 2 marquee players in this league? I find it so funny that we don't give Marty his flowers when he is absolutely crushing it. And the defensive zone play has improved dramatically because he's stuck with the process. So I think this whole Jekyll and Hyde thing of them having 2 versions of themselves, I think maybe as they continue to build this confidence, we'll see less of this very stark contrast between their lowest lows and their highest highs. But I just think it speaks to the process that this team has in place. It's working. It's working to teach these guys how to play the right way. And it's in moments like this, you start to see, okay, I see the vision. I see what they have planned out. So again, short-term pain, long-term gain. I think that this is, the play against Edmonton really, to me, showed that the coaching staff they're on the right track with how they can get this team to play better.
You mentioned the highest highs and the lowest lows, coming a little bit closer together and being a bit more consistent. Do you think that's going to extend to Caden Primo?
What was it, Coach? He said, "If I speak, big trouble."
Yeah.
Yeah. I
think that was a pep.
Yeah.
Does it?
I don't know. I think Caden Primo needs to. I want to say play more in order to play himself out of it, but you can't justify playing him more because what you see has been bad.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating again, like the waiver eligibility aspect of all of this has made it very difficult for the Canadiens to manage him. The waiver rules are in place to protect players, right? So that they don't just get sent down to the minors, on a whim. It's to give them a shot to play in the NHL. But Caden Primo's waivers are taking away the opportunity for him to play, period. Like, that's not good. I can't imagine that, like, Caden Primo's stoked to be in the situation he's in right now.
I don't think so.
No, he can't. So, I wonder, they're going to have to get him into another game eventually. They're going to have to pick that one. Look at the schedule for December when you have a moment, listener and Laura. It's a pretty soft month as far as like quality of competition. There's probably some room to get Primo into some games there. So, fingers crossed that they can sort of rehabilitate him into the backup goalie that they want him to be. But again, like I don't, the hand wringing about all of this is kind of silly because, okay, he's not part of the long-term plan of the Montreal Canadiens. Did anyone think he really was coming into the season? That was always the long shot, right? That well, maybe he turns into a goalie that we want to keep. This was always the most obvious outcome for him as a player, unfortunately. That's just part and parcel with his development.
Right. And I think, that's kind of been, because we've had this conversation since 2021, right? And I do remember back in the day, one of our good friends, Dylan, who's actually a goalie coach, and he, the Habs petition, for those of you who remember back in the day, that far back, and he didn't have a lot of faith in Caden Primo, in his potential. He, we talked about how good he was at, the college level, AHL, whatever. And he talked about how when you make it to the NHL, you do have to make adjustments in your game. And he didn't see those adjustments happening in Caden Primo's game. So like the whatever it is that takes you from being an AHL caliber goalie, and he was great in the AHL, that one thing that you have to do, or whatever it is, like the little adjustments, he just was not doing them. And it feels like he's probably not capable of them at this point, because the Canadiens have had multiple opportunities for coaching and consulting, et cetera, et cetera. So like, if he's not able to make that adjustment, I think that, Dylan was right 3 years ago.
Man, tough market. Montreal got a 3-0 shutout. Caden Primo didn't even play, and he's catching strays on this show.
Kind of my fault.
yeah, they're gonna come after you in the comments on this one. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's like how we hate Arbor Jack. I also hate Caden Primo.
And Mike Matheson. You hate all of these players you say you like.
I hate all of these players. But I did want it to work out for Caden Primo. All right, it is time for trivia, and I still can't guess the answer to your question.
So yesterday's question was, name the player: Edmonton, Minnesota, Florida, Montreal, Los Angeles. And your answer is Tom Gilbert in Montreal for 2 seasons, 117 games played, 14 points. That's a guy if I've ever seen one. That's
literally just a guy. That's really funny is that like Ian also gave me 2 hints, listeners, 2 hints, and I still didn't get it. What's today's question? So
I was, posting about the game, and someone had brought up video games. We were talking about NHL 94 for a while. So, who was the Canadiens' highest rated skater in NHL 94? Their highest rated player was Patrick Waugh, obviously, but who was their highest rated skater? Remember, that game came out the year after they won the Stanley Cup. So who was their highest rated skater? Put the answer in the comments if you have it. We'll pin whoever gets it right first, and we'll shout you out on the show.
Thank you so much for listening, and we are going to be back all this week. Even though there are no games, we will have episodes. So please make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. Like, rate, support, let people know about us, let them find us. You can find us all over social media. We're actually, we've moved to Blue Sky now, so you can find us at our regular usernames. Ian's at Maybe It's Ian. I am at The Active Stick. And most importantly, the show is at Locked On Canadiens. It's also that on TikTok. It's also that on Instagram. So find us, subscribe, join us. We are planning a lot of fun stuff. And who knows, you might see a rumor roundup in an episode coming to you really, really soon. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you tomorrow.